It's been a minute since we've had one of these, and I always have fun because one, Brandon's here, your boy, and we have a
Yep.
great guest for you. She's the national brand ambassador for Green River Distillery, which is out in Owensboro, Kentucky. Let's welcome in Caryn Wells.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
we're and you're not in Owensboro tonight. You're somewhere a
Not
lot warmer than Kentucky, where Brandon and I are at.
a little bit. A little bit. I flew into Tampa, Florida today. I'll be here in Tampa and Orlando the next couple of days, and then I'll come back home to the beautiful weather we have there.
Well, I think no matter what, though, we've got some pours to warm us up, Brandon. And I figure let's just hop right into it. And our first one, I've got the bottle, is something I'm excited to give a try. Green River's Weeded Bourbon. So, Karen, can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. This was not the very first mash bill that we laid down, but it was an important one to us. And it is our we. I just think it's fantastic. It's just our wheated bourbon. We use the same mash bill as we did with our high rye bourbon. So this is 70% corn, 21% soft red winter wheat, 9% malted barley. It comes in at 5 years old and it is 90 proof. So just a really nice sipping bourbon. I think what makes it pleasant for everybody is that it's not overpowering. It's very nice and balanced on the palate, and yeah, you just get some really yummy aromas on it. A lot of citrus, a lot of stone fruit nose on it, and then man, it's just delightful for me.
I
The
love the
first sip,
nose.
yeah. Sometimes that first sip can be a little,
Yeah.
gotcha on it, but I really find that the wheated bourbon sits really nice. I tend to pair it when I'm doing pairings with it. I like to put it with any kind of a stone fruit. Pick up a lot of apricot on the nose, but actually, what I pair with it is a dried sweet cherry. Dried sweet cherry really pulls out a lot of the underlying tones in this and makes it just a really good, easy sipper.
Yeah. You hit you hit the cherry part right on the head for me because I was getting almost like a cordial cherry, like the kind of like a creaminess to it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can pick up some of that. Sometimes I even pick up a little bit of honey, like on the
Hmm.
nose. It's
Yep.
it's got a real
Great
sweet,
nose.
yeah, real sweetness to it. It's not. I think we make some mistakes sometimes when we're talking to people about bourbon that we always want to start people on a wheated bourbon or people that are new to the bourbon
Hmm.
world. And I hear people multiple times say, "We'll start with a wheated bourbon. It's smoother, it's sweeter, it's going to sit on your palate better," and that does work for a lot of people. But I also think that it can be a little deceiving too, and you can get some really good notes on other bourbons that are may have rye in it instead. So, but
Right.
uh, but this wheated bourbon really, I'm typically I'm not drawn to wheated bourbons. It's not what I reach for and go. If I'm going to sit down and have a bourbon, but when we came out with this wheated bourbon, I was really surprised, pleasantly, obviously, and have enjoyed it more and more as I just go through and what am I going to have tonight? Well, let's have some wheated bourbon.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. I'm like
uh,
you. I'm like you. I'm not normally drawn to wheated bourbon myself. Don't be wrong. I like it. But it's probably not my
Well,
go-to.
yeah, when we make bourbon, I'm sure you've heard this a thousand times. We always start with corn, and then we have to make that decision: do we go wheat and sweet, or do we go rye and dry and spicy? And I do feel like this wheated bourbon has some spices in it, but it's more like the baking spices notes that you get on it. Not all wheated bourbon has to sit the
Mhm.
same on everybody's palate. And I think this one, we non-chill filter everything, which means we're leaving those good fatty acids or the good oils in the bourbon. So we're going to get a better mouthfeel, more viscous on the mouthfeel. And even when you're just having your glass and you're holding it up, you're going to see the residual. fatty acids or the good oils on the glass. And you really want that in a bourbon so that you can pull more flavors out of those grains.
Yeah, and you're right. You do get the spiciness for me anyway. I do taste those because although this is very good and it is really smooth, especially at the 90 proof, I think it for me it drinks a little bit hotter than 90 proof. Um,
I I think what
like
it is, and you may.
which is a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Don't get me
well, I
wrong.
don't think it's a bad thing, but I also think it can be misleading for some people. I think some people think that if you're drinking a wheated bourbon, it's just not going to burn, and that's not necessarily true because everybody's palate is different. And I find that more people when they're trying our flagship and then our wheated bourbon, they really see the difference because uncommon in the industry. Our wheated bourbon and our high rye bourbon are identical mash bills. And so you literally get to see the difference between a wheated bourbon and a high rye bourbon. And when you get to compare them neck and neck, side by side, uh, people get often surprised that they actually, gravitate from one to the other. Maybe they never liked wheated bourbons and they like this one, and or they never like rye bourbons and they like our rye.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious to see that distinction because when we were kind of where Brandon and I do this at our houses, we like to split up the bottles and we kind of have like a little draft and I was like I wanted the weeded because I've become a weeded fan as we've done more and more of these because there is a lot more. I don't know. There's some complexity to. There's so many varieties of wheat. Like I mean, there's just so much
Yeah.
that can go on there, and this one has got a lot of flavor. And I just think it's like Brandon said. I think he's right. It does drink a little hotter than that 90, but it's a very flavorful pour.
Yeah,
it's
I think I like to think about heat on any bourbon is it giving you the spices or is it scorching your insides? I think I look at the two different things. If I'm getting more flavor and more spice, to me that's great. If I'm because it's pulling out more flavor. If I'm just getting alcohol burn, then that's not something that I particularly care for. Some people don't mind it.
right.
That's just not something that I gravitate to when I'm enjoying a good
And I
bourbon.
and I think the spice is is flavor coming out of this.
Yeah.
That extra spice, like it's not just that burn. Like it's just gonna,
No, it's a lot of
it's not.
like baking spices that you think of, on a recipe piece somewhere that you're like, oh, that
Right.
had a smidge of a kick, and you're like, oh, but that's just some nice flavor there. And as we keep sipping
Yeah.
on this, I got to ask you, Caryn, what made you join up as the Green River team? Like, I mean, they've got a lot going on these days, so I'm sure that that's some fun. But what made you go to Green River?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I have a unique and interesting story, I guess. I actually was retired when I happened upon Green River and the distillery in the bourbon world. I worked in Florida for about 40 years. I was a public school teacher. And then I left teaching and I found another state retirement career. So I actually retired from the fire department. I was a lieutenant firefighter and a paramedic with Orange County Fire Rescue. And when I retired, I moved to Kentucky. I wanted my Four Seasons back and just to get some cooler temperatures because Florida's pretty hot most of the year. And I actually happened into the industry. I was attending a meeting, a bourbon society meeting at the distillery, and we were drinking our rye whiskey that at that time was only 2 years old, and we were drinking it straight out of the barrel. And the people I was sitting with worked at the distillery, and I casually mentioned to them, "Hey, if you need tour guides, I'm retired. I'd love to do this and learn more and whatever." About a month later, they called and one of them said, she called me. And she said, "Hey, were you serious or were you drunk?" And I'm like, probably both, but here we are. So yeah, I actually started as a part-time tour guide, then kind of rolled into full-time. I was enjoying myself so much, and then kind of became the backup or the lead tour guide backup for our master distiller if he wasn't available. And then when we got ready to launch in 2022, they asked me if I wanted to be the national brand ambassador. And I'm like, well, I don't know what do I have to do? And they said, well, you're going to have to talk to people, tell them our story, teach them how to drink bourbon, tell them about our bourbons, and you'll have to travel. And I said, and you're going to pay me. And they said, yes. I said, okay, let's do it. So here I am, almost 3 years later, 4 years, 2 years, 3 years later. Yeah, doing it, loving it, having a great
That's
time.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just been fun. It's for me, I think what's been really fun is watching our brand go from something that no one's ever heard of to I can just use today as an example. I was checking in Louisville to check my bag, and the Delta agent, she said, "Oh my gosh, you work for Green River?" And I said, "I do." She goes, "My dad loves Green River." She goes, "My mom, I'm trying to get her converted, but my dad absolutely loves Green River." And I was like, well, there you go. I mean, of course, Louisville's a little different because they're used to seeing all the bourbon people come through, but to have somebody actually point it out, that's really cool. And watching having that journey with the brand has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I was gonna
That,
say, when you're getting clearly you enjoy talking to people. I mean, I'm guessing adults are a little easier than kids and young adults in theory. But
Sometimes
or it's very similar. One of the two.
it all
One of the
depends on
two.
how much alcohol's involved. That's it. That's all it is.
Well, and I was gonna say, with your role as national ambassador, you kind of explained a little bit, but I'm guessing when you're traveling, are you going to restaurants and different places to try to, either work on cocktail programs or other things? Like, what are you doing when you're out and about, everywhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the primary role for me is to do education, teach people about our brands. But second to that is helping our sales team that's out in all of our markets. We're in 38 different markets right now, helping them, whether it be staff education or whether it be dinner pairings, or I have a sensory tasting experience that goes through all of our products that they can have me come in and I'll do it. I've done it for as few as 20 people and as many as 120 people all at one time. So that is my role, is to come in and be the spokesperson for the brand. Ask me your questions, let me tell you about our brand, and let me help them get our name out there a little bit more. So it's a little bit of everything. I don't necessarily go store to store and try to sell in the product. That's what we have our distributor for, and as well as our market managers. I will, if they need me to, I will, happy to do it. But it's more staff education and public speaking and things of that nature.
Which you seem pretty qualified for with everything you've done.
Thanks.
yeah.
There's good days and bad days, just like everybody else.
Well, well,
Sometimes I
one of
make
the
up new words. Brandon, I hear you're good at that. So sometimes I make up new words. You
Yeah,
never know.
yeah. I like making up new
you're in
words. It's
good
fun.
company. Yeah, you're in good company.
Kindred, kindred souls right here.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And we even like to keep the temperature cold in our houses,
That's
and
right.
we warm
See,
and we warm up with bourbon. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
so,
We're
100%.
on to something. We're on to something.
exactly, exactly. Now, Brandon, what are you thinking on that weeded? As I know you finished it off a little quicker than I did.
I think it's really good. I mean, again, if you're somebody who prefers that weeded, like you said, it comes in at a lower proof. It's easy sipper, easy drinker. It's really fantastic on the nose. Like I really like. That's one of the key things that I look for. Um, again, I did mention that for me, it drinks a little spicier than 90 proof. But again, that's not a bad thing. That to me, that's good because I'm getting that flavor we talked about. Not that just that this straight alcohol burn. Because there is some products out there that'll do that to you, and it's just not. That's not good.
Yeah.
Like you said, some people prefer that, but I don't. I'd rather get I'd rather drink a little hotter, get that more flavor from it. That's also
Yeah.
why that I'm excited to try the foolproof because I love foolproof because the majority of the time that has just so much flavor into it, even though it's a little spicier, a little hotter, but it also packs a punch when it comes to flavor.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you get to that one.
Yeah,
I will
can't wait.
say, I will say this much. Brandon, I see your glass is empty. If you just go back and nose your glass now, you'll notice that you're going to pick up a lot of different notes off of that
Yeah,
weeded bourbon. Part of that is due to the fact that it's non-chill filtered, so you're leaving all those good oils on the
yeah,
inside of that glass. The other part is that. And I learned this a long time ago. Whenever I go to really look and investigate into a new bourbon and see what it's all about, I make a pour and I let it sit for about 10 minutes and then I come back to it. We have a very high corn content in this. It's 70%
can
corn.
smell it.
And corn grows with oxygen. Therefore, letting your bourbon sit out and get some oxygen is good for it. It doesn't hurt it. It's going to help open it up a little bit. And you're going to pull out a lot of different flavors, a lot of different aromas on that nose as well.
I was gonna. You kind of took what I was gonna say, because I had like a little bit left, and we've been talking for 10, 15 minutes since that first drink, and that first drink, like you said, it comes at you. It kind of gives you a nice little punch right off the bat, but by that end drink I had, it was almost like a totally different
Yep.
pour, which is goes to show the complexity of just that 21% weeded portion of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's fun to sit and just study them and let them aerate. Let them just open up on their own. And before you go adding ice to it, before you go adding a drop of water, there's nothing wrong with doing that on any pour that you have. But let that bourbon open up first and let it show you, what it is, and then try it those other ways because you may find that you have some that you just don't even need to add ice to, or it works well on your palate just as it is.
Yep,
Well,
I
and
agree.
I'm excited to try this next one. Brandon's got the bottle, but this is the high rye bourbon. So
Yeah.
we switch out the 21% wheat for 21% rye.
Yeah, this is our
The regular,
flagship.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah,
flagship
this is
bourbon.
this is the black label.
Yep, yep. But
Okay. So, yep, that is it. Yep.
nice.
So that one we launched on February 10th of 2022. This was 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. Exact same yeast strain. Everything's identical except we flipped the flavoring grain. So this is where people really get to see what they may or may not like. You know, um, this is my go-to. This is between this one and our foolproof. If I want to drink more through the night, I'm going to drink our flagship at 90 proof. If I want to have one, maybe two, then I'm going to go to our foolproof or maybe a single barrel. Just higher proof. I can drink this. It almost drinks too easy, to be honest with you, Tony. It is so sweet on the nose.
It is very sweet and a totally different nose.
Totally different nose.
Yep.
And see, to most people, when you nose a bourbon that has rye in it, it should kind of burn your senses a little bit. That's typically what a rye grain is. It's a little more peppery, just the different spice that's in it. And I think people get really surprised with this one because it actually noses sweeter than the wheated bourbon does.
I was gonna say it's more. It almost smells very traditional, very kind of those typical flavors that you might expect on at least initially. We'll see what
Yeah,
my taste buds say.
I think you'll be surprised.
That is totally different than I was
Yeah,
expecting.
it's completely different. I'm trying to pinpoint
What were you
what kind of
expecting?
flavors.
In your
I'm
mind, just yeah.
honestly, I was expecting like what. Let me preface this by saying that I love rye. Like it's probably my go-to. any kind of bourbon. Like it's just any kind of rye to me. Most people pick up spice, a lot of spice or a lot of heat from the rye. I don't. For whatever reason, my taste buds is just I get sweet, and of course you get the burn. For me, it's just kind of like a you know that that contrast of flavors. Like you get the burn from the actual bourbon, but then you come in with the sweetness from the rye. That's what I get from it, and that's why I love. That's why rye is my go-to. This it smells really sweet, and I get that sweetness again from this rye. Like I really do. But man, there's a certain flavor that I'm trying to pick up that I can't pinpoint in my mind to make that correlation. But
I could throw out some names, but I'm going to let you have it for a minute and see if you can figure it out. I don't like planting those seeds in people's mind. But I will say this much, for most people, when they drink our high rye bourbon, your spice is going to sit one of two ways. Some people will get it all up in their sides and right up here in their mouth, and it's very smooth when you swallow. Other people, it'll be very smooth up front, but it'll pop you with a spice in the throat. There's no right or wrong because everybody's palate is different. I will tell you this, if you guys have water there with you and you put one drop of water, and I mean one drop of water in it, it literally flips the spice. It opens it up. It doesn't change the nose. It doesn't change the flavor on the palate. It literally flips the spice from the front to the back or vice versa. It's really a fun, unique bourbon. It's my favorite.
John,
Well,
what
I
do
was
you
gonna
think?
say it doesn't feel like a 90 proof. It to me it's very, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like a mellow flavor. Like it's not overpowering on the palate. Like it doesn't like scare you
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
It's a very
Um,
approachable pour. I think that's why I was shocked, and it's not like I said. You get you feel like you're going to get a ton of maybe, like I said, those traditional flavors. At least when I knows it, like the caramels and stuff like that. But you really do get more to me of like, oh man, I'm trying to think of
I'm
holiday
gonna
baking because
I'm
this
gonna
is really
throw a
perfect
couple
for
things.
holiday baking.
I'm gonna throw a couple things out at you guys. First of all, I like to pair this with allspice, and for those people, we think allspice is a very this time of year especially we encounter it a lot in the baking. The other thing I like to put with this, really two things to be honest with you. I love putting maple syrup with this. I love putting butterscotch chips with this. That toffee butterscotch caramel is what really comes out in this really strong.
yep.
Yeah,
And
the
And
it,
it's
butterscotch on that side. Yeah,
I definitely after she said the caramel, that's why I get that a lot too.
yeah. And
But
it's
you're
just baking spices. It's not pepper. It's baking
uh-uh.
spices.
No, there's definitely
because
not.
there's no real heat.
And if you're right, John, this is very very subtle.
Hmm.
And if somebody out there that wants to get into rye, but they've tried rye before and they don't like it because it's too spicy. This is a good starting point, honestly,
Yeah,
because it's
this
very
is,
very smooth, very very subtle. It's not strong, and that
yeah,
spice from the rye. Yeah,
yeah,
I like it.
it's very deceiving because when you hear high rye, uh, you know, high rye when this was laid down was anything over 18%. 13, 18% was the standard. So 21% was considered high. Well, now it's not. We see 36%, we see 44%, whatever. So it's not considered high. However, we still call it a high rye bourbon because per the norm, it is in that upper echelon. So it kind of scares people, because they think, oh gosh, this is high rye, this is going to be really spicy, and it is not. It is just a sweet bomb, with lovely baking spices on the finish.
Very much so.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say totally different than what I was expecting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's fun.
100%. And I do get
So
that. I do get the spice. For me, I do get the sweetness on the front, and then the little bit of the spice on
Yeah.
the back end.
So,
Um, but
and yeah, I could be wrong on this, but the spice is a warming spice. It's not a hurt you spice. But if you were to take and put just one little drop of water in that, it literally flips it. I do that with a lot of people. I do it with my tastings all the time, and it really blows people's minds. It's like they think I'm doing voodoo or something, with them. But again, going back to the weeded being having a little bit of a bite on it, now you can almost see why I get a lot of people to go, oh, well, maybe I do like a high rye bourbon, or I like bourbon that has rye in it, because when you are literally comparing the difference between a weeded bourbon and a rye bourbon.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So
it was. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I ask away.
So just if you want to tell us a little bit about the history of the Green River Distillery and the Tyler site and how that all plays into everything, and that way everybody listening can kind of get the history background of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. A very old brand, started in 1885. We're
Okay.
very fortunate that we're on the original property as to where the distillery was in 1885. Very prominent brand for 33 years before Prohibition. Known for three major things. The biggest being that this was the official whiskey of the United States Marine Hospital pre-Prohibition. Whiskey was medicinal, and Green River was awarded the contract for 18 years. So for 18 years, you would pick up a bottle of Green River whiskey and it would say official whiskey United States Marine Hospital. 1918 suffered a massive fire and it never really came back. It was gone at that point. Tried to revive it in the 40s and the 50s, it just wasn't successful. And after Prohibition, the distillery was rebuilt, but it was under new ownership. And for the next 60 years, the distillery was under the ownership of the Medleys. And the Medleys are local to Owensboro. When they ran the distillery operations there, they produced Ezra Brooks and Mellow Corn and Medley Brothers and Five Brothers. So a lot of very big brands coming out of the distillery at that point. But it too closed up in the early 90s. Then it sat vacant for about 20 some years. And then it was revived in 2014. And we started producing in 2016 and released the first Green River in 2022 after over 128 years. So fun story, really cool. I always encourage people to come to the distillery. We're on the Bourbon Trail. We're on the heritage side of the Bourbon Trail. That's for the big producing distilleries. This year we should hit about 106,000 barrels that will produce this year. Um, Most of the buildings are from the 40s and the 50s, so you get to walk back into time. It's really cool to you feel the presence of the old distillery. We have a very large still. We only have one. It is 54 inches in diameter and stands 4 stories tall. We're producing between 400 and 450 barrels a day on the still. And currently, we have 27 fermentation tanks at 16,000 gallons each, and 27 rick houses that are full. So we are not, yeah, we're not, we're a new to the bourbon world, or newer now, name to the bourbon world, but we are by no means a small distillery.
No,
Well,
that's a lot of
I knew there had to be a lot of history there because of the distillery number
Yeah, yeah.
being so
So
low.
yeah, DSPKY 10.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. And for
yeah, we
those out
put
there
it
listening who don't know and who sees that DSPKY number, the lower the number means the older it
older the
is.
display. Yeah, so they were handed out in order, back in the
Hmm.
day, and
Yep,
so to have that 10 is huge.
yep.
10th oldest licensed distillery, so very honored to have that, and it means something because it's for us. It's a not only is it history, it's a sign of quality too. Owensboro itself used to be the mecca for distilleries back in the day. There were about 50 active distilleries in the city and surrounding areas because we sit right on the Ohio River. But once Prohibition hit, people didn't know how long it was going to be, and everybody just ended up closing up. And so to have a distillery back operational in Owensboro and to bring that iconic um, industry back is huge for us. We're a huge farming community, and we produce a lot of corn, a lot of wheat, uh, tobacco still. So it's really it's fun to have it back in the city. And when I was a tour guide, when I started there, I had a lot of 70, 80, 90-year-old people come through on tours telling stories of whether it was them working in the still house or them rolling barrels in the rick house. And those are things I eat it up. I mean, to see them light up and talk about what they used to do, man, that is just you don't want to lose that. That's Americana right
Now, was the original name Green River?
there. When we opened in 2014, or when it was bought in
No, what?
2014.
No, no. When it like I'm talking about way back when, before
Yeah,
Prohibition.
yeah. 1885, it was Green River. Yeah,
Okay.
so John McCulloch actually started the distillery. He was a gauger in the area, so
Okay.
basically a tax man.
Yeah.
He actually bought a distillery called the Eagle Distillery, and it sat on the Green River. And the Green River is about 5 miles outside of town, west of us. It was a terrible location. The only thing we don't know the true reason, but the only thing I can assume is that he relocated it knowing that that was a terrible location. We literally back up to the Ohio River. So, and I assume he named it Green River to honor that original location. And then he was a marketing genius. I mean, he advertised the hell out of this brand. And it won awards in Paris. It won awards in Italy. It won the World's Fair multiple times. Back in the early 1900s, the World's Fair was a huge thing.
Yeah.
It was massive. And I always try to tell people too. You think about today's shipping and all the different things that go on. How long did it take them to get product over to Paris? How long did it take them to get product over to Italy? I always tell people we are officially distributed in Australia, and we shipped them product in October of 2023, and they got it in January of 2024. So, in this day and age, as long as it took them to get product, now back it up to the 1900s. And how long did it take them to get product over there? You know? And were they shipping barrels or were they shipping bottles? Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
be
the
a logistics guy back then.
Oh.
yeah, shipping and receiving didn't get as much money as they
No.
should have.
Yeah. Well, the bright side of it would be less regulations, probably, but back then.
Yeah, not as many rules and regulations for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Great stuff. So
Okay.
let's move to the next. What's next? Let's move to the next one.
Yeah, foolproof. Foolproof.
Yes.
That's gonna be this pretty baby right here.
Mm. Yep.
So
That's
foolproof.
the one Brandon wanted. He needed the
Yeah,
bottle.
this
Mhm.
guy just came out in June of this year. We listened to consumers. We wanted to do something that was stronger. When we first released Green River at 90 proof, some of the first, you know, people coming back were saying, "Well, what? I wish it was a higher proof." And it's like, I understand that, but also understand if we start at 100 proof, where do you go? You got to start with that baseline, and then you build up to it. And we wanted to also wait until we had some older barrels. So Full Proof came out in June. We used 5, 6, and 7-year-old barrels. We did about 240, 250, 250 barrels and dumped them together. Whatever the proof came out, that's what it got bottled at. There's a misconception out there that full proof is what we put it into the barrel at. There's no written rule on what full proof is. So for some distilleries, that's what they choose to bottle it at. Ours was basically taking 240, 250 barrels and dumping them together. What the proof came out, that's what we're going to bottle it at. The first batch came out at 117.3. We did 7,000 cases, anticipating that to get us through to the end of the year, through to December. And a month and a half later, it was completely sold out. So
A
that
little bit
was
of demand.
a little bit of demand, little, just a tad. Obviously we were elated at how well it went over, and for the price point. The first two that we had, they retailed for $34.99. The full proof being a higher proof, it retails for $49.99. So you're looking at basically a cast strength product at $50, and that's unheard of. I mean, in this day and age. So yeah, foolproof is it's taken everybody by surprise. Didn't you? All right.
It is way different than obviously the first two for obvious reasons. But wow, it's flavor bomb. Wow.
Just the nose of it. Most people, when they nose it, and I like to do. That's why I like to do these together with our flagship and then the full proof. The flagship's 90 proof. Full proof is one I'm drinking is 118.1. Uh,
Yep, same.
Yep.
you would
What we got?
expect Yeah, you would expect it to hit you in the face a little different. It's higher proof. You would expect it to pop you a little bit, and it doesn't. And that's what is so astounding to me. Now, when you go to drink it, you're getting all of those rich, creamy, sweet flavors, but the spice that you get is all flavor.
Yep.
It's not it's not heat, and that's what is, I think, really
Mm.
really throwing people for a loop.
Yep.
I would say this, Brandon. Correct me if I'm wrong on what you're thinking. So we've had the weeded, we had the straight bourbon, the high rye, and then the full proof. I'd almost say the weeded had more heat in my mouth than even this one at
Yes.
118.
Yes.
Isn't it
100.
wild?
100%.
That is
I totally agree with
And,
that.
wow.
and you would have bet
Yep.
money. You would
Yep.
have bet money just the opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I love doing my tastings with people. And not that it's wrong. There
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm,
no right or wrong. But
Yep.
there's such this misconception that, well, wheat is, here, honey, try this. Wheat's going to be sweeter. It's going to be softer. That's not necessarily true. People forget, we all have different palates. What you've eaten that day, if you take medications, that screws up your palate. I always joke around and tell people, if you had COVID, you probably still don't even have a palate. You're trying to work it back. So all of those things play a factor into it. So don't assume that just because they never have had bourbon before, that you need to start them with a weeded bourbon. Because there are a lot of great bourbons out there that are made with rye that are great. I mean, they are just full of flavor and really sit nice on the palate.
I keep looking over at my I wrote on there the proof and everything on my little bottle that I kept, and I'm like, you would if you'd give this to someone. Granted, I could be wrong because Brandon and I love full proof. We or higher proof. We're about the 105, 110 range. I think we're similar on
Mm-hmm.
that. There's no way anyone would expect that to be 118. I
Uh-uh.
don't believe.
Well, if you've never tried any of our single barrels this year, I would suggest you try them because there are some that it's like I won't tell people when I'm tasting them on single barrels. I won't tell them what the proof is. I'm just like, just sip it and enjoy it, and then make your thought what you think it is, and then I'll tell you what it is. And uh, I was just out in California not too long ago, and we premiered the first California single barrel out there, and it was 130, 134, 131, somewhere along in that, and it honestly drank like it was about 120, 122. It was insane, and it's our standard mash bill. The barrels were coming in. They had to at least been 5 years old, but they got vetted by our head distiller, our single barrel coordinator, and myself. We all had to like it because we all have different palates, and then it would get put into the program, and then people could choose from it how they wanted to. So
And now,
fun stuff.
what is the What's the age on this one? How long is it
Uh,
aged?
on foolproof,
Yeah.
foolproof, we use 5, 6, and 7-year-old barrels.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a blend. It's a blend of 5, 6, and 7-year-old barrels, but it's still the 70 corn, 21 rye, 9% malted barley.
Gotcha.
That that
Well,
is a flavor bomb, and as Brandon likes to say, I almost feel for me, I don't always get this,
don't
Brandon. You say it a lot. It's
don't say
juicy.
it. Yeah. Yes. I was
What is
thinking it,
it?
and I was like, I don't know.
What'd you
Oh,
No,
say?
it really is
I'm
like
glad you said
in the
it.
best way possible. Like it,
It is.
like this could be my everyday day pour because
Mhm.
it's not
That's
over, it's not superheated, ton of flavor. Like I, I in a bit, I'm a little speechless on this one.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
Wow.
that's why I think that's what happened is that when people tried it when we first launched, 7,000 cases, guys. That's a lot of cases, and to say that in a month and a half it was gone. It was gone. And we're like, oh, okay, I guess we'll do some more, because for 50 bucks, you go out and you get, there's people that just want that high proof. They want to sit and enjoy it, and that's great. But for 50 bucks, you don't have to feel bad about drinking it all. There's
Nope.
some of them that it's like when I get it, it's like, ooh, this is going to be special occasions.
And that's a fantastic price point compared to any others that do the foolproof, um, expression. It's a very, very good price point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
I was gonna say why that price point. You mentioned
Wow.
the weeded was what, and
Hmm.
the high rye were what, like 30 bucks,
39.
30,
35.
34.99. Yep, thirty-four
Wow.
ninety
So why
nine.
so approachable?
Matter. Yeah. Why? Why? Well, that's a novel idea here. What we
Uh-huh.
want people to drink it.
Hmm.
When you're coming out with an old brand that was extremely popular,
Yeah.
um, and you do it in an era where there's already a plethora of other products out there, you got to think logically. And it's like, do we want people to go out and look at the bottle and go, I've heard about it. It's kind of a cool looking bottle, but I don't know. I'm going to pay 70, 80, 90, $100 for it. So that was the first thing. The second thing is we're very fortunate. We make our own product. We do not source. And my favorite line to tell people, we don't source, we are the source. So, we do contract work for other people. So when
If
you're
you don't
making
have
your
that
own
on a
product,
T-shirt, you need that on a T-shirt.
I
Yes.
know, I think I knew, I think I knew.
Yes. Yes. You do.
I'm gonna have to talk
We
to
don't
somebody. I
source.
know,
We are the source.
I know people. I'll have to do that. Yeah, so that's it. And that makes all the difference in the world. And don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic brands out there that have to use us, but they also, in turn, you got to pay. It's not going to be the same cost point as what it is for us.
Right.
So that made it really easy for us in that respect.
Hmm.
And then again, if you want to sell the product, let people drink it. And you can. I somebody another some podcast. I don't remember who it was. They said, what's the best line out there? What's the best product out there that you can go and start your bourbon collection? And they said Green River, because for $150 you can have a wheated bourbon, a high rye bourbon, a rye whiskey, and a full proof for $150. And whereas some products
Some
you're only going to get one, maybe
That's what I was gonna say.
two.
I mean, I was thinking I have a very specific brand in mind that Brandon might be able to read my mind on. We're not gonna say it on air, but like a 7 year, 8 year would be $180, and you're like,
Hmm.
whoa, and this is
And
50,
there's
and
yeah,
whoa, and
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, but
And there's
wow,
nothing wrong with it. Yeah, everybody has to do what they need to
Then you
do.
do. Yeah.
And I respect them for that. But for the common person in this day and age, and the way that the economy has been, it excuse me, it's tough to go out there and say, well, let me go spend $70 and drink this whole bottle in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. Now I got to go buy another one. Where you can say, well, for $70 I can get two bottles and have it last twice as long. So I think from that aspect, our marketing team and our sales team did a great job on that. And even with our single barrels, the single barrel, when you can find them, because we only did about 250 of them this year across all our markets. But the single barrels retail, our suggested retail is $59.99
I mean, you can't
And
beat
that could
that.
be
for a
five,
single
six,
barrel,
7 year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
are those the same like age kind of in that 5 to 7 year, the single barrels?
They have to be a minimum of five, and the fives are going to be very select. Most of them came out closer to six. We had a few that were a little over six. We
Yep.
didn't produce as much in 2017, 2016, so we didn't have as much to play with. You got to hold some of those back and save them for those older dates. But yeah, some that came out, man, they were just they drank like water. I mean, it was insane on some of them. I have yet to see one that really wasn't good. And it's honestly,
Brandon,
it's
keep an eye
been
out on his
yeah,
travels.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
He
yeah.
moves around more than I do. Before we get to the next pour, I wanted to ask this because we talked about that price point being very approachable, but your all's approach to whiskey, that high rye, high wheat content. Why kind of go with that 70-21-9? Because clearly it's working with you. I get that part, but obviously,
Where'd it come from?
yeah, where'd it come from?
Yeah, where'd it come from? Yeah. So a lot of people ask, is this the original recipe for Green River? No, it is not. When we first started, our master distiller was Jacob Call. Jacob laid down a lot of these things, and when we launched Green River in February of 2022, the world's eyes became on us. With we were a big hit, and so. Because we do a lot of contract distillation, even back then, we were a hot commodity, and we had somebody come looking at us for our contract distillation capabilities. And so in July of 2022, we were purchased by Bardstown Bourbon Company. So we actually became sister distilleries. We were Bardstown's largest competitor for contract distillation, and then they realized, basically, holy shit, we've got a whole old brand here. So that's been fun in that respect. But at that point, Jacob made the decision to move on and do something different. But these recipes that were initially laid down were a combination of what he chose to do, and I don't know who else influenced him on all of that. And we laid down some other things as well, maybe not as much, but our primary recipes or mash bills were the 70 corn 21 rye and 70 corn 21 wheat, and they're working for us. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
Don't
really,
overthink it.
Don't do it. Don't do
yeah,
it.
right.
Don't do it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. We have some old 19. I think one of the oldest bottles I've seen. We have a 1912 bottle of Green River that is full. Back then things were corked, so you get caught between a rock and a hard place. Do you pierce that cork and draw a sample and then get the chemical makeup of it and run because then you've now truly exposed it to oxygen and ruined the value of it. But I think right now we're onto something. It's good. It's not broken. We're not going to fix it. Let's
You
just
mean you
let it
don't have
ride.
like a old canister somewhere that was hidden? That you extract the DNA out of it and all that.
Yeah. We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't know. I would trust more a glass bottle than I would a canister. But
Yeah.
or I
yeah.
can't. I was gonna say I can't remember the one that. Well, I know what I'm thinking of, but I'm not. But it's amazing what technology can do these days.
Oh
And
yeah.
no, that first
Oh,
sip is wild.
Yep.
Like I
it's
can't
wild,
top
isn't
that.
it? Well,
Fantastic.
you just wait. You're in for a real surprise then with the rye whiskey.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Shall we go to the
Let's
rye
go.
whiskey
Yeah,
because
I'm
this is
fine with
near
it.
and dear to Brandon and I. Like he said earlier, we we love rye. Like we love high rye bourbon, but we really love rye whiskey. We're the oddballs that love rye whiskey, and I
Yep.
can't wait to give this right here a try.
Well, this guy here has taken the world by storm, I think. First of all, as you guys are getting your pours out, I already made my pour. It's been sitting out here for a little bit.
Nice.
So, yeah. First of all, when it comes to rye whiskey and to the consumer, I think most consumers know this, and if they don't, they're quickly learning this. The rye whiskey is going to cost a consumer more because it's more expensive for us. The grain itself costs us more, as well as the fact that it's a harder grain to work with. On the distiller's side of things, it's a stickier grain. We've got to clean things more. We don't make as much in our fermentation tanks because we've got to consider the rise when we add the yeast. So there's a lot of different factors that fall into when it gets bottled. Why does it typically cost the consumer more? We did not do that. This bottle that you're getting ready to try is going to cost you the same amount of money as what our wheated bourbon and our high rye bourbon is. So this bottle out on the retail would we suggest a $34.99 price on it, and that's unheard of. This is 95% rye, 5% malted barley, coming in at 95 proof. So we did up the proof on this a little bit. We felt that the flavor profile sat a little better at 95. You are still looking at a 5-year-old on it. And when you nose this,
Wow.
if you did not know that there was rye whiskey in here, I would almost guarantee you that you would bet money that
You,
this wasn't a rye.
I was gonna say you wouldn't have thought that. No, it's not super. You don't get that all the spice, all that on
It's
the nose.
not in your face. Yeah, it's not in your face.
Mm.
I personally am not a rye whiskey lover. It's not something I will gravitate to. I know. Don't
I know.
don't
All right,
don't judge
we
me.
have found
Don't
we have
judge
found
me.
our spot where we differ. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a,
Sorry.
well. See, I already admitted I'm either the flagship or the foolproof. But either way, rye is not something that I would gravitate to. However, that being said, remember what was the first thing I told you? How did I get started with this distillery? I was drinking rye whiskey out of the barrel, and I was like, "Holy crap, this stuff is really good."
Mm. Wow.
All right, Brandon. I was a little bit sad that I didn't get the full proof bottle. I'm not sad anymore.
Oh, no, you shouldn't be. No, no, you shouldn't be.
This is ridiculous, isn't it?
It's good.
So I describe this to people when I'm talking to them and I'm teaching them about our products. I describe this as the bourbon lover's rye. If you're trying to like rye whiskey and every rye has been too in your face, it's too spicy, it's too peppery, you're not pulling the sweet flavors out of it. This is going to be the rye whiskey that's going to get you over that hump because it is not in your face. It's very citrusy on the nose. I pick up a lot of honey on it, and I actually get a graham cracker as well on this.
Hmm.
Yeah, would not have guessed this would be what I was drinking. No,
Yeah, yeah, 95% rye, 5% malted barley at 95 proof.
because it's not over. There's no intense heat. There's really not a ton of intense spice to me.
Mm.
It's
And I mean that
flavor.
like it's yeah, it's flavor. It's I know I use this on the foolproof on the juicy side, but there's a lot of mouth like your whole mouth is getting flavor and nothing's
Right.
crazy overpowering. It's just really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, non-chill filtered, so you're leaving all those good oils in there, so it's going to coat your mouth differently. Um, and it's just very flavorful. So something else that we did that may or may not be common to everything and anybody, but we use the same yeast strain that we did in our bourbon as we did in our rye. So you're pulling in a lot of those similarities. The yeast effectively in a bourbon or a whiskey, a yeast provides somewhere around 30% of the flavor of it. So if you're using that consistency in it, and then you're adding in the grain, you can understand why I call this the bourbon lover's rye, because you're pulling in some of that consistent sweetness that you get out of a bourbon, but you're adding in the spices and the peppers of the rye that will help you understand it a little better.
Yep.
What do you
Really
think
good,
of that,
isn't it?
Brandon?
Very good. Yeah. This is going to be even better. Like coming back to this like in a couple of days. Like because the reason why I say that is because we've had so much flavor going on drinking this, but I'm excited just to come back to it in a day or two and just try it by itself because I think it's just
Yeah.
going to be even better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But this is, I mean, for everything that me and John love and Rise, this is it. Like,
It's great, isn't it?
Well done.
Well, and again,
well done.
thank you. I still go back to the fact that it's $34.99. You
That's
can
silly.
that's when I say you can effectively start your bourbon collection
Mhm.
with all four bottles for 150 bucks, right, roughly in that area. And you have your wheated bourbon, you have your high rye bourbon, you have a rye whiskey, and then you have a higher proof so that you can get you got your whole collection going. And the beauty of all of our products, in my opinion, is that they stand alone and they can be enjoyed neat on the rocks with a splash of water. If you want to add ginger ale, Sprite, I don't care. Try it neat and then enjoy it how you want to. But the other thing is they all hold up really well as a mixer. One of my favorite cocktails to get is an espresso martini, but I get it made with bourbon. So if I want it to be, I know.
Nice.
I want it sweeter, I use the wheated bourbon. If I want it just to be like what I call a normal espresso martini, I use our flagship. And if I want it to have a little bit more of a punch to it, then I use our rye whiskey. And it's great. It's once you have once you have that with bourbon, you'll never go back to the vodka.
Yeah. That the rye would be really good in an old fashioned for me.
Oh, old fashioned,
Yeah.
Manhattan, a black
Yeah.
Manhattan, those
Yeah.
are all really good. They just hold up well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon, what am I allowed to mix with Coke Zero?
Um, Ice.
Fair, fair enough. Fair point. Fair point.
I'm with you, Brandon. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
So
You gotta make it.
funny story about John. When we first started doing this, we've got a separate version of our that goes along with our hops and spirits brand. We do reviews, bourbon reviews. It's called Neat and Mixed. When we first started doing it, I always drink my whiskey bourbon neat, and John always mixed his with Coke Zero. It didn't matter what it was. Somebody could send us a 17-year-old bourbon, and he would mix it with Coke Zero and try it.
Hey, I would try it first
Uh,
and then mix.
John,
Mhm.
I'm gonna full disclosure here, and this is being recorded, so it's gonna be out there. Most people who know me. So full disclosure, when I first started drinking,
Yeah.
I drank bourbon and Mountain Dew. Now Mountain Dew was made as a chaser for whiskey, so don't judge me. Okay, don't
Yeah.
judge me until you try it.
We don't judge
And
here. We
and,
don't judge. Well,
and I
Brandon
was
judges, but
always
not me.
I would right. I would always be like a little bit of bourbon and a lot of Mountain Dew, and then it would
Right.
be a little bit more bourbon and less Mountain Dew. And before you know it, my palate started to understand it. So that's why I always tell people taste bourbon neat so that your palate starts to understand it. But if you want to mix it, but allow your palate to start understanding it, because once you start understanding it, you'll naturally back off those sweeteners that when I'm telling you there's caramel, you're expecting it to be like a caramel, like a Werther's caramel, and that's not what it is.
No.
So it's a baby step kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people, taste it neat, enjoy it how you want to enjoy it. There's no right or wrong.
Hey,
There's no
Brandon,
right
what
or
am
wrong.
I doing right now?
But at the end of the day, John, you've made it. You've made
Look
it to
at
neat.
you.
Look at you.
Look
Like
at you.
I'm just so proud.
So
Nice.
look,
Mm.
my heart's full.
Yep.
John,
Although
John,
although it
drink
does
it.
mess up the neat and mix concept, but But beside that, um, I must say the bottle is very sleek, and I love the
Yeah,
horseshoe on it.
so yeah,
Can you talk a
so
little bit about this lovely bottle and the design
Yeah.
and why the horseshoe?
absolutely. Absolutely. So, when you bring back an iconic brand such as what we did, you just don't do it in a normal bottle. The original Green River bottles were a typical old school, just typical glass bottle. So we wanted to honor the history of the brand, and part of the history of the brand was the fact that the horseshoe was on the original logo. So we had the bottle made in the design of a horseshoe. Then if you feel all the tops of the bottles, they're kind of bumpy, and that's to emulate the rivets that were around that horseshoe that were on the original logo. We've got what appears to be a tax stamp, but it's a faux tax stamp. It's got a picture of the Green River on the top of it.
Yep.
We embossed Owensboro right across the front with a little horseshoe
Yep.
on the flat side of it. Established 1885 down at the bottom because the year was important. And then on the back side, we've got right here, let me see, right there, DSPKY10. And you've already pointed that out. We've also put it boldly on the front, DSPKY10, because we
You're
want
not
people to
proud at all. You're
understand
not proud at all.
that we're not proud at all. We want people to understand that history is important, and reviving that history is important, and honoring that history is important. And so that was the whole goal of that. Now, what we did not know that we did, that by creating that horseshoe shape to the bottle of it, you see how there's a rise right here in the
Yep.
bottle?
Yep.
Okay. Well, what we did not know is that a coin such as this, flip it
Hmm.
over so that you guys can see the right side of it, will actually slide right up underneath this bottle. Let me see if I can do this. See how will this
Yeah.
slide?
Oh, you didn't know. Uh
We
Uh-huh.
really did.
huh.
So we actually get a drinking game. We really found out about it the night after we launched in February 2022. A lot of our friends were calling us up and texting us and saying, "Hey, did you know a quarter will slide underneath the bottle?" And we're like, "Oh crap." We didn't want people to think we were coming out with a gimmicky bourbon. So the first year we kind of laid low on it. I might show it to people here and there, but we didn't really make a thing out of it. And then once people realize this is a really good bourbon, we're an old brand, we're on the original property, a lot of history here, and we're honoring that history. Now we have fun with it. We call it shoot the shoe. So we have the coins like I have here. It's got the logo on one side. This particular coin has the horseshoe on the other side. The coins have a story too. Back in the 40s and the 50s, they tried to revive the brand, and they handed out coins to magicians. And magicians would hand them out, sleight of hand in their shows, free of charge. You just get a coin, and it was free advertisement. So when we realized that we made the game or had the game with the bottle, we're like, well, let's bring the coins back. So we've got the coins, so you can play the official shoot the shoe game. We usually bring it out at tasting events and dinners and whiskey festivals and things like that. Have some fun
Nice.
with it.
Nice. I do have one question about the bottle.
No questions.
No questions? No more questions? We're done?
I'm just,
All right, I'll just
just
drink more. All right.
yeah, okay.
Have you guys given any thought to putting like, say, the mash bill on the bottle?
Ooh, great question. It's kind of hard. I will be honest with you. With the bottle, we've got everything on the back with the history on it.
Yep.
With the sides, in our Bardstown, we always have this on the side. We always have our mash bills listed on it. I don't know that we could effectively without really doing some redesign on the labels and stuff. It's not I'm not saying it's out of the question. I
Right.
will say this much though. If you ask any of us what the mash bill is, we're going to tell you. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
we have no, and you even if you go onto our website, we tell you what it is. We want, we don't have anything to hide on it. This is what the mash bill is, and if it comes out with something different, then we'll be happy to tell you.
Okay.
We
Awesome.
like transparency, and I was happy
Yeah.
when I was looking up the questions for everything to see that 70 because as folks that know the industry goes, like that doesn't really give away the secret recipe. There's a lot of
No.
different corn and wheat and rice and
Yeah.
barley, but it's nice to know
Yep.
because that lets us figure out what we like and can
True.
Correct.
build our
Correct.
bourbon collection, so to speak.
Correct. Well,
Absolutely.
it's just like um, the expression that we had earlier in this in the show. That's the the high rye.
The flagship.
Yeah, the flagship, but it's a high rye mash bill, right?
Yeah.
But so just for if somebody that's just playing both sides of it, like if I'm somebody that don't really like that high rye mash bill, but I see this in the store and I pick it up, it might be a happy accident. I may absolutely love it, but if it's a high rye mash bill and I'm not really my jam, then somebody may not enjoy
Yeah.
it as much. That's
I
the only
think
reason
in
why I
this,
asked.
yeah, absolutely. I think in this day and age with the internet, with social media, with everything that's out there, I really think it's hard to not know something,
Yeah,
simply because with guys like you guys doing the podcast and reaching
mhm,
out to us and having us come on, I think it's important. And I know for our brand, you know, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it for you. We want you to know, we want you to enjoy it, we want you to embrace it, and we have nothing to hide. So
nice. That's what we like.
yeah.
So tell me, tell everybody, like, give us what would be a distillery experience. So if I wanted to come
Oh
down and
gosh.
see the distillery, see the
Yeah.
grounds, maybe take a tour. I've got word on the street that maybe you could put me in a class and teach me a thing or two, but I'm not really sure. But
Yeah.
just tell me
Sure.
what I can expect if myself or any of the fans listening want to come down and take a visit or take a
Yeah.
tour.
Absolutely, yeah. So as I said earlier, we're on the Bourbon Trail. We are a heritage member. We do tours 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. We have a variety of tours from a standard distillery tour and tasting to a barrel thieving tour. We do cocktail classes. For those people that may want to come to the distillery but they aren't able to climb stairs or do a lot of walking or standing, then we have what we call a sit and sip, where you get all the history and you get the tasting, but you don't have to walk everywhere. Once a month, we do a head distillers tour. Sometimes Aaron's available, sometimes life happens and he's not. If he's not available, then either myself, if I'm in town, I'll do the tour, or our single barrel coordinator, Wes James, he'll do the tour. Those three positions are considered respected positions because we know a lot.
Yep.
And we try to make everything enjoyable, for people. We understand we are the western gateway to the Bourbon Trail. So we sit 2 hours west of Louisville, 3 hours west of Lexington. But when you come there, we make you feel like family, and you walk back into time. I mean, to walk into our buildings and to see our distillery, 5 of our rick houses that are on the property proper are made out of clay tile, and you don't get to see those anymore. They're old, and
Yeah.
that is on our tour. You get to walk into those and feel it. This time of year is one of my favorite times to go into the rick houses. It's cold, don't get me wrong, dress appropriately because it's an indoor outdoor tour. But you really feel everything,
That's awesome.
and our visitor center, where you actually start your tours, is the old bottling house from where the Medleys used to bottle Ezra Brooks and Mellow Corn, and now it's our event space. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. So, there's a lot to offer in Owensboro, not just our distillery. I mean, we have the Bluegrass Museum and Hall of Fame. We have a lot of barbecue there. We've got a beautiful waterfront. So it's worth the trip. It's definitely worth the trip.
Nice. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say we're
So
hoping to
that's
get out there at some
yeah.
point, but
Same.
also y'all are coming closer to us
We
in
are.
2025 with a
We
Louisville
are.
tasting room on Whiskey
Yeah.
Row. Where did that come
Yeah.
about? I mean, like you said earlier, when you're traveling out, Louisville's a little different than everywhere else when it comes to whiskey. I'm guessing that's a little bit why, but obviously, what can
Yeah.
folks expect there when it officially opens later in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah, so we just announced that. We'll be building our Louisville home place, as we call it, about 3 doors down from our Bardstown home place that's on Whiskey Row there. I think what you'll be able to experience, the tastings, some of the history. It's just another way to engage people about our brand, about our history of our brand. May even have a little, speakeasy associated with it, given the time frame of our brand.
Nice.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll do some unique things, maybe some special releases or, you know, uh, I say distillery slash Louisville home place only releases. So, just to help people understand and then encourage them to go out and see the distillery itself. Because, like I said, most people think that we're a small craft distillery. We are a pot still. We're not that. Everybody always asks me, "What's the name of your still? Do you name your still?" I said, "Yeah, we named our still. It's called Big Ass Still. That's what it's called. It is a huge still." And
I like it.
you're about, you're not even less than 5 feet from it. So to be able to stand that close to it and see it, I think that is what helps people understand the uniqueness and the character of making bourbon in Kentucky.
That's another idea for a T-shirt. Put that on a T-shirt.
Big
Big
ass,
ass, big ass still.
you're still big ass
We're
still.
we're we're really good at t-shirt ideas.
Really good at T-shirt
Yeah,
idea.
we're gonna
Yeah,
we're gonna have to chat offline on this
yeah,
one.
oh no, for real. Like, yeah, yeah. You got some good
No,
ones there.
well,
That's great.
and, and y'all are putting out an amazing like core lineup, but when it comes to maybe a special release, because clearly the core lineup sells well, um, and people enjoy it. What's coming next? Do you have any other additional
It's
things
the
that
future.
be on the lookout?
Sure.
That you're allowed to tell me about and not get in trouble.
Oh, is that right? I
Yeah,
was given permission. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
don't know.
This
Oh,
is cool. I feel good about this now. I think part of it is that we have to really take a look at the brand and where we want our brand to go. We're very fortunate to be a part with our sister distillery of Bardstown. With Bardstown, we're innovative. We're on the cutting edge of things. We still do things old school, but we do all of those collaborations. We do the finishing on that. I think for our Green River brand, I think we're going to be a little bit more selfish on that in the sense of that we don't do that necessarily as a worldwide release. Maybe it'd be a limited time offer, or maybe it'd be a distillery only offer. I think the core brands of Green River in my opinion, need to stay humble and stay true to the history of bourbon and whiskey in general. But that being said, we've got weeded bourbon. Well, okay, are we going to come out with a full proof or a single barrel? Our rye whiskey, are we going to come out with a full proof or a single barrel? I mean, we've still got options, as far as what we're going to do, but also those things take time. Not everything stands alone. At a 6-year mark, it may not be right, or at a 7-year mark, it may not be right. So we have to be really careful when we do it and how we do it, because we've already set the precedent of how good our brands is and at what we're doing. This year, I don't know that most people realize we released 3 things this year, and technically we released 4. We came out with weeded, we came out with rye, we came out with foolproof, and in August we came out with 1885, which we test marketed in 7 different states, and now it's going to go nationwide. And 1885 is for restaurants and bars. It is it's a 1 liter well product that is meant just for them, so that they have something that will work and be conducive for them using it in a well.
yep,
So that's a lot to come out with in 1 year.
yep,
So, I think you'll see us a little bit of a slowdown, not much, but a little bit of a slowdown, but very thoughtfully, you know,
yep,
worked out.
yeah, for sure. Wow, fantastic stuff. Like,
Hey,
I'm impressed.
thank you. Thank you
So,
very much.
absolutely. Yeah.
No, this has been fantastic, and if you want to keep releasing more stuff, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say no because
We're
this is
good?
really
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good. No, I give you permission. You're good. You're great.
Okay. All
Uh,
right.
but no, like
Oh,
going through it all, like I went back to the weeded, totally different than any of the other ones that we've had.
Yep.
I still think of the foolproof and the rye like two
Yep.
totally expressions that I would not have expected that flavor profile of,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
like you said, it's so approachable on the price point. You really can go out, try it. This is one you can
Yeah.
try, get something, and if you like it, go back and get again. Like you know what I mean. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that we get to try that is a lot higher cost, and all that. And I get it. When you're mixing stuff, I understand when you're blending, but like, wow, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. I think it's a testament to the quality that we want to produce and what that we're keeping the consumer in mind, and that is to me important because it's like it's one thing if we like it and I would pay for it, but it's another thing we've got to think of the consumer and we've got to think of the market. And so I think it's really it's really well thought out, and I'm very proud to be able to talk about it because if I was trying to tell people or convince people, yeah, go spend $80 on these, it's not that it's not worth it. It's just harder because I understand where people's finances are. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. So I can confidently tell people, yes, go out and try these. If you like bourbon, you won't be disappointed. These are gonna suit your needs, and you don't have to feel guilty about drinking it. And that's what makes it really easy to talk about our brand, along with the fact that it's just such a great history, and an iconic brand of the time.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Like it's really good stuff. Like I said, the foolproof, the rye is probably the two of my favorites.
Yeah,
And again, the like we talked about, price points just, I mean, you can't beat it.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm only looking forward to the stuff you guys got coming because as time goes on, it's just going to get better because you guys
Well,
are going to
that's
have
it. That's it.
longer
It's
the age.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just gonna keep aging. So
Yep.
you got to figure 20 by 2018 we were laying down 90,000 barrels a year.
Yeah.
So and that's unheard of. So I mean, in that respect, we've got a lot. So we should be
That's
we should be sitting pretty good.
yeah.
Get some older
Yeah.
stuff.
So it sounds like something might be coming at some point, right?
Oh yeah.
You know?
There's gonna be some 10-year stuff coming. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. For sure. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
you only got a couple more years, in
Exactly.
that respect. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We can only put out anything as old as it is, so can't put out a 10-year if we haven't been distilling that long. Well, I mean, I
True.
guess we could if we were sourcing, but we don't
Right.
source, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
Exactly.
good
We
thing.
are the
Come on,
source.
we're
We
coming.
are the source. That's right. I know. Figure out the layout of the
Yeah.
shirt.
Oh,
That'll be
it's
good.
I'm telling you, we got
hey.
some good
Yeah,
ideas,
yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yes.
and,
Yes.
and Caryn,
100%.
this was fantastic.
Yep.
As Brandon said, that foolproof, the rye,
Yep.
it
it
is.
could
Thank you, guys.
fantastic. And the wheated and
Yeah,
the high rye bourbon are fantastic as well. But
Yep.
those other two just come through with such different expectations
yeah.
than you initially
It's
think. And
it's
wow,
fun, isn't it?
Yep.
I love doing tastings
Yep.
with people and watching the expressions on their face. It's the
Awesome.
highlight of my night whenever I
That's
get to
awesome.
do that. So yeah, I'm
That's
glad you
awesome.
guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers,
Cheers.
fellas.
Cheers.
Cheers.